Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making orange and cranberry Irish soda bread in honor of St. Patrick's Day. This recipe requires 1/3 of a cup of buttermilk, which I didn't have, so I'm going to make my own. I just have whole milk here. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of either vinegar or lemon juice. We're going to let that curdle, which sounds weird, but we're just going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. We also need to rehydrate 1/4 cup of cranberries. I'm using Grand Marnier, but if you prefer non-alcoholic, just rehydrate with orange juice. We also need the zest of 2 oranges. I have these 2 gorgeous blood oranges here, but just use regular oranges if that's what you have in your house. I'm just using my microplane to carefully zest off that top layer of skin. And don't worry about the naked oranges, you can use those for Aperol spritzes. For the dry ingredients, I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour, adding in 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/2 of a teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, giving that a little mix to start mixing those dry ingredients together. Next, we're going to pop in 2 tablespoons of cubed unsalted butter. You want this to be very cold. I'm just going in with my hands and just working that butter through like we're making a pie crust. You could also use a pastry cutter or a fork if you prefer, but I just find clean kitchen hands are your best tool. And it should resemble wet sand once everything is worked in. Now our milk is looking good. We need to add 1 whole room temperature egg to this. If you're using buttermilk, if you happen to have that, you can skip the vinegar, of course, and the blooming on the side. But you definitely want to beat your egg into your buttermilk as well. We're going to start adding this to our dry ingredients just a little bit at a time. We want that dry to absorb the wet before we add in a little bit more. And this is a wet, sticky dough, so I do recommend using a stiff spatula or a wooden spoon. We do need to drain our cranberries, and you can chop them up a little smaller if you prefer, but I'm going to keep mine whole. We need to sprinkle this with a little bit of flour just to make sure they're dispersed evenly throughout the dough. You don't want all your cranberries to drop to the bottom of your bread loaf. Now we can add this to our dough along with our orange zest. And we're going to fold this in so it's evenly incorporated. And it is going to look a little bit like wet oatmeal for a minute, but we're going to go ahead and add another 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour once we have the cranberry and orange folded in. So just add that extra 1/2 cup of flour and just start mixing that all together, just to make sure you don't have any pockets of flour hiding out in your dough. At this point, you should be preheating your oven to 375 degrees. We're going to lay down a sheet of parchment paper, and we are going to generously flour this. Then we can tip out all of our dough, which, as I mentioned, is very wet and very sticky, and it smells amazing. The essential oils in that orange zest, that's all you can smell, and it's just lovely. Now this is not a fancy dough. There's no kneading process. There's no long resting process. So this is definitely something you can make in about an hour. This is a serving for about 1 to 2 people. You could easily double this recipe if you needed to. Now I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more flour on top, and I'm just going to start shaping this into a round. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this is a rustic loaf, so it's going to look homey and warm and comforting. We need to cut in a 1/4 inch deep cross on the top, just to allow any extra steam to escape. I'm going to cook this in cast iron for 35 minutes. You could also use a baking sheet, but before you pop it in the oven, just brush it with a little buttermilk. Just give a nice golden crust on top. So after 35 minutes, we can pull out our bread, and we just want this to cool down for about 5 minutes. It is delightful when it's served warm. So let's take a look inside and see what we have. The color of this is beautiful. That orange zest has colored the dough throughout, so it's slightly orange. You get a nice disbursement of cranberries. But let's definitely give this a taste. You have to eat this with some good Irish butter. This is like if a loaf of bread and a scone had a baby. It's soft and moist on the inside, but crusty on the outside. And this is absolutely perfect. Get these bursts of cranberry, that orange zest comes through. But there it is, orange and cranberry Irish soda bread. I hope you all try to make this. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a like. If you loved it, subscribe and hit that notification bell because I put out new videos every Thursday. Thank you again, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Oh my God, it smells heavenly.